Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies, gentlemen, welcome.
Everybody in between and without that binary as well. Welcome back to the bottom tier. I am Greg.
I am Matt.
And yeah, we're back again.
It's another week.
Who's excited?
I am.
Woo!
It's another week. It went by fast.
It did.
I'm not gonna lie.
I feel like we did the last one like yesterday.
I know, and now it's here again, which is exciting.
It is.
Yeah. But guys, welcome to the Bottom Tier Podcast. We are a Flesh and Blood podcast. We talk about everything we love about Flesh and Blood because we're fangirling over here.
Dang right we are.
And we just like this game. And so we talk about what we like in a casual space. And yeah, that's pretty much our podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome.
Pull up a chair, get a tasty beverage, chill out with us for a little bit.
Yeah, it's nice, and we're going to listen to the sounds of our voice. I don't know. Maybe we can have hypnotic music there.
We're gonna jump into some of that ASMR stuff.
All right. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's spooky season. And so what we've been doing this month is we've been talking about the spooky spoilers that have been coming out ahead of time, which is awesome. And so we've been pretty consistent the past few weeks, having lots of drops, but literally this week, one drop.
Yeah,
one drop. So we don't have a lot to talk about on the spoiler part of the session, but it does raise an interesting question. So why don't we just jump right in?
Let's jump right in, Matt.
To that card that came out for our good old Rune Blades, for the Rune Blade clan out there.
Rune Blades represent.
Yeah. We have another Lantern card.
We do. I'm pulling it up right now. We did remarkably little preparation today.
We did a lot of preparation. We showed up.
That is true. Which some would argue is the most important thing. I would argue that.
I mean, yeah, if you don't show up, there's no show.
Right? Exactly.
So we're here.
We are, in fact, here. And I've almost got the card up, guys. I'm so sorry. Hold on one second.
All right. It's all right.
Here we go. Skyfire Lanterns. Comes in rainbow, so red, blue, and yellow. 0 cost, Rune Blade action, 2 block. Reveal the top card of your deck. It's the color that this card is. Create a Rune Chant token. Go again.
There you go. So it creates a Rune Chant
Easy
token.
to the point.
Yeah. If it's red, yellow, blue, creates 1 Rune Chant token, and then you get to go again. What do you think about this card, Greg?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. I don't think
it's nice in that it's nice and usable for all the Rune Blades.
Yeah.
Even a Briar build where you don't see Rune Chant very often, she can still make use of it. So it'll fit into, any particular deck that wants to generate Rune Chant, which is nice.
Yeah.
But,
it's an opt one. It's an opt one essentially, and then you get to kind of see what's coming up, and it kind of themes with the deck. I felt like the Illusionist one made more sense.
Yes.
Because I feel like Illusionists are like stacking their deck to be a very certain pitch color.
Exactly. Whereas with Rune Blade, you have a much wider sort of spread of the colors and the resource curve that you utilize. So it's not just, I'm running, 40 blues in this deck and 10 yellows. So I'm just going to stack it with, the blue Rune Chant creation card or whatever.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you see a Rune Blade deck go completely, really strongly monocolor. The big exception to that is I've seen a few Briar builds where it goes pretty heavy into the red. Yeah. So you could potentially run the red Lantern and generate a little Rune Chant off of that. But honestly, it's practical sort of, but it's not super useful.
Right.
If you really need a little more opt, or if you really need just 1 or 2 more Rune Chant sort of in your deck, then I can kind of see it. I can also see it as a pretty good precursor card to some of the things that require you to play a non-action card, a non-attack action card and an attack action in order to trigger something like a Rosetta Thorn. It
seems
like
an easier one of those because it doesn't cost anything. And
it's free. You can just throw it down. It has go again built into it already, so you don't need to do anything fancy like a Mauve Iron or Trigger Chains effect or anything like that. So fairly useful in that sort of context. And having an extra floating Rune Chant is always nice. Yeah. Just that little bit of extra arcane to either do that little bit of extra damage or to force them to use a resource or burn an equipment or something to spell void or something like that. So it has some practical application, but it's not anything that's mind-blowingly powerful.
No. And they're both common cards, so it makes sense, the Illusionist one and that, but it does kind of raise an interesting question in my head. And I think we talked a little bit about this before the show, but are we getting lanterns for every single class is the question. And what are they going to be? Like, is it going to all have the same? It seems like they have the same mechanic of reveal a card and you get to create X. And so with that, are we going to have one for Ninja where we get to make Crouching Tigers if we reveal whatever?
Or Zen State.
Or Zen State Toasting?
Yeah. If
or Quickens, you know?
Just a generic lantern to generate Quickens, or a Guardian specific one for Seismic Surges, or like... It seems like they're doing this to make it easy to generate auras, which can really be interesting if you look at it and think it through for a minute.
Yeah.
Like obviously, just having a Rune Chant or a Zen State or a Seismic Surge or something is nice in and of itself. But then, like with the Rune Blade one, it sets up your non-attack action card so that you can start comboing off of that. For like Guardian or something, there are a few cards, I don't remember the names of them, but I remember as an effect that, if you've created an aura this turn, do certain effect or something like that. So it could be a really easy way to just sort of generate that and get some of those synergies coming. So really interesting if that is what they're doing, but it's going to leave a few classes out. Because like Mechanologist, for example, as far as I'm aware, and I could totally be wrong, there could be a card from like Arcane or Crucible or something that I'm not aware of, but no auras or anything.
And
that's
they could
like
be
class specific.
They could be creating one, but also like it could be as simple as like it creates a Steam counter. Like it could be like add a Steam counter on a.
It could. It totally could. So like there's different things that they could do. It could like Steam counters, aim counters, whatever. It could do a lot of things like that. So kind of interesting to see, but on its own, like the lanterns don't super impress me so far. They're interesting. I can see some of the utility in them, but they're not making me go like, oh, I have all these cool new deck ideas or anything.
Right. And then the worry that I would think is like, man, if there's this many lanterns for every class, like we're just going to have a set just full of lanterns and some crazy items, which is fine. But the other question is, so far, it took a while, and the only lanterns they revealed were for two interesting class choices. Illusionist
and Rune Blade.
So is this a little, hey guys, like Illusionist and Rune Blade's getting support, and there's a reason for it. Are we going to get our refillment of Light Illusionist and Shadow Rune Blade?
Man, I really hope so. Like, maybe not in this set specifically, because LSS really likes to set stuff up like ahead of time.
Right.
So maybe not in this one. I really hope so. But within the next year or so, I think that we can kind of expect to see it.
Well, I mean, yes, but I was thinking in this set specifically, right? Like, I honestly don't want to put this out of the picture. I do think we're going to get an Illusionist of some type, because we only have one. And I think we might get our generic one. Because especially with the card where it's like, and it's going to be a blue pitch Illusionist.
Yeah, I would be really excited to see just Illusionist class.
Yep,
just
Illusionist.
Straightforward is what it is. To sort of separate it from your Prisms and your Dromais. That'd be really interesting.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get a bunch of new heroes in this. Like I'm personally, and I think you're on the same page too, kind of hoping for what they do with like Crucible, where it was just like, okay, well here's 7 new heroes. Have fun, team.
Yeah. I hope so. It'd be really cool. And it depends on what the take they are. Because if they are all like Yoji, which I'm fine with, like I like Yoji, but that means they're just more made for PvE. And then it just kind of makes them go like, oh, that's cool. But also like, I can't practically use this in certain ways unless I am a casual player playing Ultimate Pit Fight all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So like, hopefully we just have some heroes that are just like, oh, that's really fun to be able to play in general, and just like half for Commoner or half for Blitz, and just, or even like I hope we do have a Starvo situation, but not Starvo, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like we get one adult hero that's pretty fantastic. And
yeah,
like
one adult, 2 or 3 young ones. We've had the Emperor and Yoji revealed already, so maybe 1 or 2 more young heroes.
Well, we were promised that we would get a class that hasn't come out yet, right? So we're gonna at least
which I'm
get
super excited for. I wonder if they're gonna spoil that during
their actual spoiler season.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that would be cool.
Like on the one hand, I can see it being like a really great way to build hype and stuff.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I totally see it going like, all right, spoiler season is over, everybody. And no, we didn't introduce the new hero. You'll have to buy a couple of boxes and find it yourself.
Ooh.
Right?
I think they will spoil it and kind of get people hyped because the heroes
think they probably
do that.
will too.
But also, like we only have 2 legendary equipment so far, I believe, which was the crown, or 2 legendary cards, which is the Emperor and the crown that gives you Royal. So we still have a couple, like maybe 1 or 2 legendaries to learn.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the actual break. I know that they publish like the breakdown and everything, but I don't remember what the numbers are.
I think it's like 5 legendaries.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So we still have 3 more we got to know about. So that's exciting too. So I think the big spoiler reveals are going to be like their legendaries, some of the M's, because I think these weapons were standard M's or maybe even R's, but they just all have Marvel versions of it, which they really wanted to showcase. But yeah, we'll see the game changers in the spoiler stuff.
I'm super excited for the spoilers to really start hitting. There's still like a billion things that they're going to spoil. Like I was looking at the list of people who have gotten spoilers or will be getting spoilers, and haven't revealed them yet, and it's gigantic.
Yeah.
Conveniently, actually, also. So we film these episodes Wednesday. For a Friday release. Conveniently, if I remember the dates correctly, we will have all the spoilers by Wednesday.
Yep.
So we'll be able to just go through all of them.
Yeah, we're excited
and
for
be
that.
relatively.
We'll have a show.
We will actually have some content, not just the 2 of us sitting here talking at each other, both being really, really tired.
Hey, usually I have high energy at this moment, but it's been crazy today. So,
man, I don't know what's up with today. It's just a weird energy day.
It's a day.
It's a whole day.
Mm-hmm. But
24 hours worth of it.
I'm excited. Like this all looks very promising, and the new set looks good. I hope we just don't have lanterns for every class, but it is like a thought that came through, and I do hope that one of us are able to fill in those cards, because there's nothing worse than if people are familiar with the podcast, like when Shane was gone, it was devastating for a lot of people, right?
Oh, my boy Shane.
Yeah, for CC at least, right? Blitz and Commoner, you're still able to play it, but when Shane was gone, there was just kind of like this, but now I have all these cards that I can't really use for anyone else. And so I'm excited for them to get that pool back in there. And maybe they are just taking a break and being like, hey, we don't get to have this pool right now because we just had it. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm excited to see what new things are coming in Horizons. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling very excited for Dynasty.
Yeah,
very excited.
It's going to be great. With that, what do you want to talk about today, Greg?
Well, you know what? While we're thinking about it, let's just go ahead and pivot real quick to our recurring segment.
Oh, lessons learned.
Lessons learned.
Yeah.
What do you got this week for us, man?
All right. So this week,
any good learning? Any bad learning?
Yeah, actually, I do have a lesson learned.
Ooh, here we go.
This is an actual just straight up lesson. So we play Commoner every single week.
Yep.
And this week, actually, I guess I have a couple lessons. I was playing Leviah. I'm having a lot of fun with Leviah and Commoner. Just the Talishar build, and that it's just great. I really enjoy it, and it's just a lot of fun and challenging. And yeah, so I was doing really, really well. I was versing a Bolton, had him down to 1 HP, and then I was down to 1 HP, and then it was my turn to block, and it was disgusting because the Bolton's just like, cool, I have 2 cards. I use it to have a resource to swing my sword, but I have a card in my hand and an extra resource. And so I'm overthinking in my head, right?
Yep.
I'm like, I look at the graveyard, 1 red, 1 blue, raise reflex. I was like, cool, there might be a yellow if they're only running 1, where I might have red, blue, yeah, like I still have 4 more that are potentially there.
Yeah.
So the razor might be there. The first time this happens, I double block, no razor, and then I have to block again, so I only have 1 card left.
Ooh.
Which is rough.
Yeah, tricky position to be in as Levia.
I was still able to make sure Blood Debt was fine because I had that 1 card to pay for my arsenal.
Nice. Okay, yeah, good.
So it was good. But the second time came around and I was overthinking again, like the razor's probably there. And I learned a lesson from everybody who was watching of like look, like you either block and you get razored, but you need to just be worrying about your turn and how to make it the most effective, because now you're worrying about their turn and that's going to make you least effective and you'll lose, right?
Fair enough.
Either way, you're going to lose. And so I was a lesson on blocking, especially at 1 HP, of like, I need to expect that they don't have the razor because that's what screwed me over last time. If I didn't expect that and just blocked, I'd have been like, cool. And then like, cool, I just block again and I'm fine. And so this time I I just was like, cool, I'm not going to act like there's no razor. There was a razor.
Yep.
Right. But if I was able to, like, let's say it was wasn't whatever, he wouldn't have had a boost for removing a card from his soul to have go again. And so he wouldn't have been able to have his whole turn if he didn't have a razor. And so that means I, would have been able to have a full, like a 3-card grip and been able to probably pull out the win. Right.
Probably at that point.
So it was interesting, like, to be able to learn that of like the blocking, like kind of modify the blocking even more is when it gets to that low game. Sometimes you have to not overthink it and be like, cool, I'm going to play. So I'm just like, I'm blocking. And it's like, you did get me, because like now you just need to make sure you have the most grip so that you can go really hard on them. And so it was interesting. It was an interesting matchup. Warrior's always really tricky with those reactions.
God, all the time.
But so I lost that one. I was like, dang, like I went 2-1. I was like, man, I was almost there at the finals.
But you got really, really close with it.
Yeah.
And you learned a good lesson, because blocking is one of the most deceptively difficult things in this game.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, they're swinging for 3. I'm going to block for 3. Ha ha ha. And you think it's so easy until it's not.
Yeah.
You realize that 3 block was something you really needed the next turn in order to hit, the combo that you want to do this turn.
And you have to really think about the cards that you have in hand and to do that. But luckily, like, it was a good lesson, because like missing or like thinking there's a razor and then overblocking it didn't work out. Like, I couldn't just sit there and stall the whole time.
Yeah.
Because I also have to worry about blood debt with Avaya.
Right, exactly. And with a deck like that, where you're kind of on that sort of timer, your options are limited at that point.
Yep. So it was cool. Like, I enjoyed that lesson to be able to do that. Another lesson is with Dromai. Dromai is an interesting build, especially in the mirror match. And so the cool lesson with Dromai is, or the thing that clicked for me is, Dromai is about board control. And so Dromai is just saying, hi, I control the board because I have so much stuff out there. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm going to win if I control the board. And so that's why
that's been really my experience of it. Yeah.
And so that's why, but it's like, I don't think I ever heard it like explained as control the board. Like, I don't think I ever had that visual. So like with all the dragons, that's Dromai starting the board control, and like you fighting Dromai has to eliminate them to gain board control. So it's different for you. And so like when you do the mirror match, you are literally just playing like a literal chess game where it's like, I have these pieces on the board.
Yeah. How
are you going to respond? Oh, you have no pieces on the board, therefore I win, right? So
pretty much,
it's interesting, because that's the only way you're able to really go out there and win with that. So it was cool. That was a cool lesson too, is like that hero is more board controlling and stuff like that. So there you go. There's my lessons learned.
Good lessons, man.
Yeah.
I like those.
Yeah. How about yourself? What did you learn?
Oh man. So mine's a little more esoteric this week. The biggest thing for me is accepting that it's okay to take a little bit of a break. And not feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Like, we do this podcast and we do, YouTube videos and stuff. Shameless plug. Check out the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Because we're really close to 100. We just really want to break
I think we're at 89.
Like 89 as of this morning. Yeah. So guys, 11 more. That's all we need. Anyway, back onto the actual topic. So we do this, and part of, doing something like this and really trying to engage with the community and everything comes with the idea that if you're not actually playing the game, like, what are you doing? Right? Like, that's sort of like the foundation of everything, the game.
Yeah.
And if you're not participating in the game in a meaningful way, whether it's playing or collecting or whatever, then are you really in a position to get on a microphone and talk to people about it? Are you really in a position to, express your opinion and expect that it's going to be, taken and not just, dismissed outright? These are the things that I struggle with. And I've been going through a little bit of a rough patch here. I don't mind sharing that with the internet. I have no problem with that. It's been a couple of months of, of tricky business, so to speak. So I've had to, pull back from the armory. So I have been able to go out and, engage with my local community or actually play against real life people. Miss all you guys, by the way. But I've been playing a little bit online, but not too much. And so I've been in this really weird place where I've been like, half of me has been like, you got to get some reps in, you got to, play a few games, jump on a Discord and find a partner, play on a felt table, something like that. And the other half of me was just like, no, I'm not really feeling it right now. I don't want this to become like work or an obligation. I want to have fun. When I play, I don't want to feel like I'm being forced into this. So it's been this really weird kind of like internal struggle kind of thing. Like, it's not so much like an angel and a devil on my shoulder. It's, it's happy nerd Greg and sad nerd Greg. And they're just like, happy nerd, sad nerd, happy nerd, sad nerd, So really kind of like trying to get to a place where I'm okay just taking a step back for a little bit, focusing on some of the stuff that I need to focus on in order to, hopefully come back a little re-energized, a little better positioned to jump back into things. Like, that's been my lesson, is figuring out how to do that and how to allow myself to do what I need to do.
You know what? That's a great lesson. And it's actually something that I've been thinking of a lot too, is it's okay to take breaks from the game for however long you really need to have that recharge, right? Because it's not that there's not a love for it. It's just there's a there is fatigue and burnout from like obsessing over something for a period of time. And also like playing a lot or like making the time for that. Like, I noticed it where it's like, man, I have no time. And it, like, you all of a sudden like, man, I haven't had to be able to have a relax because like, I just want to go and do this and play. And we're playing a game. Like,
yeah,
I get what people are going to say of like, well, it is relaxing. Like, we're playing a game.
Well,
but also it's hyper competitive.
Can be relaxing, but, and again, this is, our example here in the area that we're in. We're in a very competitive local scene here.
Yeah.
Like the guys that we play with are like top tier dudes.
Yeah.
Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So just a casual game, quote unquote, is still at a much higher level than
it feels
picking up
an armory ends up being pretty sweaty because you are getting a total at the end of the day. You're competing for a card.
Yeah.
You're going for it and you want to get it, because it's a cool thing. So taking a healthy break is really, really good. And it gives you the right to be on a podcast still, because you're still part of the conversation. You still know the cards that are coming. And it's just, every player has to take a little break once in a while for like a week or two or whatever. And that's something I learned a lot from our locals is like, where's so-and-so? Oh, they're taking a quick break. And then they'll be back. And you're like, perfect. Because life is crazy.
They're just out for a month. They'll show back up. And like, because ultimately it is a game.
It is.
And if you're not enjoying yourself for whatever reason, then you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the people in your community who you're playing against to take that step back, to come back into it and really be able to engage fully and without, pressure or bad feelings or any of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I mean, we're still here doing like a podcast and all that stuff, but yeah, for sure. Like this week I was like, I'm doing one armory, taking a little break because I got to play some Dead by Daylight.
Yeah, exactly. There are other things that demand my attention, other very important things.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good. So, I think that's a great lesson learned. It's just, we got to make sure we do that. Like for me, I've been kind of on the break too of like, I haven't changed my CC decks ever. Like, for the past like month.
Yeah.
I just haven't had an opportunity to really sit down and be like, I'm going to go through these cards and whatever. But I think part of that for you and I too is like, we also are kind of like, man, we really want to go to Worlds. We got commitments,
Yeah.
So next year I'm excited because it'll make us like be a part of the community a little bit more as we're like, all right, I'm going to this main event.
Yeah.
That's not in my state. Like we'll still go to like the big skirmishes or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, if it's like, I'm going to this to just at least participate in the calling and like the commoner stuff there, then we'll be like, cool, we're getting a little sweaty. We're getting a little ready for it, because we got something to look forward to.
Exactly. So. There's some time to plan it out. Like, I don't know about you, but like one of the things that's been sort of like the biggest like challenge and really getting into this and starting with the content and all that stuff has been just not having that connection with like the broader community. Like here within our own little group, we're pretty well known. You a little bit better than me because you actually go to some of these stupid things. But I like to think that people in the community, if we introduce ourselves as Matt and Greg, they'll be like, oh, the bottom tier guys or whatever. Right. Or like they'll at least like know our faces or our voices. Right. But, if we go, we're talking, if you talk to other content creators or something, there's no guarantee they're going to know that. And, some of the really big names who are like getting the spoiler cards and who are really, pushing the hobby in a broad sense to a wider audience and really driving the adoption, or like kind of like, the faces of, the community. I don't feel like, and please correct me if I'm wrong or if you have a different thought on this, but I find it really difficult to find a way to connect with the other people in the community sort of doing the same things that we are. And that little, like that disconnect kind of, it's a weird feeling, because it kind of feels like being on the outside looking in while still, having a little hut of your own. I'm in a little shack and I see this big fancy house across the way, but there's a bunch of people who are just out the back of my place just staring in at me. So it's a weird, I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but it's a weird leapfroggy effect that I feel like kind of envious, honestly, of people on the Twitter talking with each other and stuff and all of that. And then I feel bad for feeling like that, because there's a bunch of people who are like, oh, hey, those guys, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, so yes, this is a very deep conversation.
We're unpacking some feelings today, guys.
This is not this is a very deep conversation.
Didn't really anticipate going here, but that's what happens, I guess. So
sometimes. with content creation, right? I've done it a couple times. So this isn't my first rodeo. I had a couple podcasts before, one about pop culture, where it was literally just me and my friend with 0 listeners, and we debated about movies and things like that. I had another one about Pokemon that got more popular called the Silscope podcast with the co-host from Australia. And the thing is for me, I just enjoying making the content, and I've always tried to teach myself that lesson of I don't want to look at what I pay attention to what others are doing, but I don't want to remove my joy by doing the comparison tactic, because I was doing that in the beginning with my first podcast, the one where it was my friend and I doing the movie rebuttal. And what would happen is I'd be listening to The Nerdist with Chris Hardwick, right?
Oh my God.
Shout out to him. I don't know if that's still going on. I haven't listened for a while, but I was like, man, this guy's so good. How is he getting celebrities? We're talking about the same nerdy things. We're doing all this stuff. How come I don't have clout? Yeah. And then I was like, well, let me do a kind of a mental pros and cons list. And I was like, oh, Chris Hardwick has been doing this for 25 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. He's established as a person, in that community. And I think, when we start fresh, it's they're doing really well, but we're comparing ourselves to people that have been part of the Flesh and Blood community for the past maybe 2 to maybe 3 or maybe 1.5 years, right? And we're on month 3 or 4.
We're month 5, but okay.
Month 5, right? Yeah, 3 or 4 or 5, around there. So we're on month 5, and so that means we have to look at them at month 5 and see where they're at if we want to do a proper comparison.
Totally.
And so that's my one thought on that.
Totally. And I'm not saying oh, our content is terrible, or
it is pretty bad.
It's not amazing, but it's fine.
It's fine. I like it a lot. If you haven't seen the video that dropped this week of what if Ripley was in it, I had a couple fun edits in there, but it turned out
pretty good. But yeah, no, it's not like we set out to reinvent the community or anything. We're not here to make money. We're not trying to suddenly become
the face of
TCC or something out of nowhere. I don't have an issue with growing something from humble beginnings or where we are, because as far as I'm concerned, we're doing really well as far as every measurable metric goes.
Yeah.
A few months into this, it's a relatively niche trading card game.
Yeah.
Compared to your Magics or your Yu-Gi-Ohs or whatnot. And the people that we've spoken to who have checked out the show and watched the YouTubes and whatnot, they seem really happy with it, and that's awesome. That's the whole point of it. And I'm really thrilled with how all of that's going. But at the same time, there's this other side of the community that's also doing these same sorts of things that I would like to. I'd like to connect with a little bit more, that I'd like to be a little bit more involved. And I really don't know how to go from, kind of where we are now to being more involved in that. It's not necessarily a matter of like comparing like progress or anything. I just, I want to know these people. These people seem cool.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, I want to get to know like the ones that are making the content that are doing well and kind of do that. And I think you and I have like a step in the right direction. Like, we are part of a group that has like a mixture of content creators in it and that play Commoner, right? But I mean, it's just being more active. It's a fault on kind of like myself a little bit too. Like, I am not the best at social media.
Oh God.
In fact, I could care less, like,
and see, both of us are kind of in that boat. And that I think is our downfall.
Yeah. So that's how we get connected is we have to be more, things on social, like more curious about Twitter and do treat it like a business, right? Like, if you want to get there, you have to treat it like it's your business, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you get connected with people, is like, hey, I got to make sure I tweet 3 times a day and do an Instagram post once a day and do some stories and cut some reels and do some stuff, which is added things to something that is a relaxing hobby for us.
Exactly.
And then turns it into something else. Cause I know when I was like really gun-ho, because I really learned about video editing, and I was like, we need to do 3 video. Like, you were the more like dude, that's a lot.
Like,
and then now I'm like,
and see how it goes.
I'm exhausted. Like like producing that many videos a week is pretty exhausting. And so like, I get it, right? Like, we got to make sure we find our balance and grow into that, especially because like, it's not the one thing we do, right? It's
exactly.
Like, we got other things like,
and like, if we were in a position to like take this and make it not a hobby and make it like actually like our business and go full in on it, whole different conversation at that point. But we both have partners, we both have work, we both have, full lives outside of this too. So I don't know, finding the balance between the whole thing and like achieving the goals that we have for it, like as those goals evolve, as we continue to improve our craft and learn the game better and all of that, it's tricky and it's weird. And honestly, it has me feeling a little down right now.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't know how to, on air, I'm just going to say, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Well, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah. Like,
it's a really awkward, like
I was like, I don't know what the best way to
poor
like,
Greg.
No, like,
Pat, moving on.
I'm sorry that's like that sucks. Like, that's a really big bummer to like feel a little down about it. And like, the only thing I can really say in a response that like is semi-optimistic is like I said in the beginning, is we're going to get there. Like, it's a journey and we're going to get there. And like, we gotta like, it will eventually happen where we have those friends and connections in there.
And see, that's
and it's just we just don't know when.
See, and that's the trickiest part is the desire to be like there already is very strong. So, and getting back to the lessons, I guess, like taking a step back and just taking a breath and letting it be what it is and doing what you have to do for the reasons you have to do it is what has to happen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. Like, something I think our vision of this is kind of like changed over time, because we were literally like, we got in this hobby, let's make content. Which is like
within like backward, a month,
which is like, backward. Like, not a lot of these people are there. Like, we're kind of already like, I'm kind of into this. Like, and now I'm going to make content. We were just kind of like, we barely touched this game or know anything about it, and we're making content for it.
We're beginners. Let's be beginners online, and let's bring other beginners into this beginner space,
because we're filled with this like passion of like, this game's really fun, and like, we want to get good at it. And you're right. We wanted to get beginners into it too. And so I think that's a whole other thing too, is it's a very niche thing that we're doing here. And as we learn the game and learn what we want to do, or when we first started, I got to get back on track where I was. When we first started, that was what we were doing, is like, we're being beginners. And now as we've evolved and whatever, our thoughts are kind of changing of what this podcast is and like what we're doing. And for me, like, I'm just stoked to be a part of the local community and have a platform to be like, look, here's this guy who like did really good, and we're going to celebrate his success. Cause I mean, that's awesome. Right. Yeah. And like, look at this deck tech of like our Commoner Cup that we made, right? Like, I enjoy that we were able to do that type of stuff. Speaking of, Jim, when you listen to this, we got to set up because you won the last. Oh, sorry. Anyways, we'll see that.
Jim, get on it.
You know what I mean? Deck tech stuff. But with the Commoner Cup stuff, like it's cool to be like, here we're showcasing this person, and we're almost like harbingers of like Arizona, which is interesting. Where it's like
harbingers of Arizona.
It's like,
oh man,
we're Arizona flesh and blood. Yeah, where it's like, this is Arizona flesh and blood, and this is what we're doing. And here's all of our like. In a month's time, we had 2 people do huge things in Pro Tour in France, and also like a calling. Like, pay attention because it's crazy over here.
Popping off, yeah,
yeah. So that's what I really like is like we're kind of creating this thing and being like, you know what? Instead of us as being the creators, the whole community is the creator of this like show.
And maybe that's what I need to do is I need to just, think about, take stock of where we actually are and just kind of reframe my thinking about it a little bit. Maybe that's what I need to do.
I mean, we will be with the personalities like some point, right? And it's like, we're going to get there. And maybe these people didn't get on other personalities' radars until they started having success. But like, I don't know, I met the guy from Fresh and Buds, which is pretty cool. I really liked his podcast. I decided to give it a listen because I never listened to it before. And
it's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's different. And he was a very nice guy, very good games, all that type of stuff. So like,
heck yeah.
Like you're able to meet all these different people that way. And we've had talks with, I don't know, Smithel's like a little force too and doing his own thing, but he doesn't have like content coming out too much. But
we've talked with Smithel, we've talked with Capolo a little bit.
Breezy, Capolo's great. He's great. Yeah. So I mean, we have like the connections, and I can see us all supporting each other. Like, oh, good job. Oh, you did it. But we're not like BFFs,
Yeah,
and maybe like, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, like that's kind of what I mean. Like there's a sort of like professional respect. Like, oh, you're making content, I'm making content. Good content. Thanks, buddy. Good content too. Thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah. But like anybody can do that. Like that's kind of surface level. Like, hey, nice video sort of nonsense. Like, cool. Like stuff like that's a dime a dozen. We're in kind of an interesting place because the game is still, compared to some other, most other trading card games that are big, it's still relatively new. And so sort of, we're not at ground level, but we're nearish ground level.
Yeah.
So being in that position where we're making the content based upon it, where we both have this passion for the game, and where even though things are like transmuting a little bit as we mature in the game space a little bit, we're not going to stop doing this at all.
Yeah.
For at least the next while. Like I see no reason or no event that could force us to stop it short of like a terrible car accident or something like that. Knock on wood. Gotta not tempt fate. Yeah. But having sort of like a back and forth almost, or like a real like engagement around a topic with somebody who's also kind of involved in that space and taking it from sort of a similar like viewpoint, like that's the kind of thing that I feel like is kind of missing, and that I kind of like, I'd like to be able to, jump into a Twitter conversation with some of these other people, or, jump on Discord and discuss all these sorts of things. And I can't quite figure out how to bridge that gap. You know what I mean?
And it just might be because we have so much going on at once. And so maybe
that's probably exactly
the goal is not to. This is kind of like I really like the topic of this podcast, and it's very real.
It got kind of weird. I genuinely did not mean
and I hope
all this to come out.
I hope you as a listener in your eardrums right now, you're like, I'm enjoying listening to this. And if not, hey, this is where we went. But like,
it's our podcast.
Like, honestly, like something you do really well is like you're very good at being that social part, especially online. Like I'm more of like a human connector where I'm like, I'm meeting you in person and now we're friends in person, and that's where I thrive, right? And like when it's like meeting someone online, not good. Like me on the Tinder game when I was single, like when I met my wife on Tinder, it was like, oh yeah, I'm going to try. Like it was like my online communication's awful. So
hello, I am Matt. I do internet.
So all I did was like, you seem cool. Want to meet for coffee. That's all I started doing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, cool, I win when I meet you for coffee, because now you see who I am. And so like, I'm really, really good at that aspect of it. You are very good at like interacting on Reddit and Twitter and stuff. And so maybe it's just taking one of those things that you like right now and then just being like, I'm putting all my focus on that space. And then once I start having a natural connection there, I'm going to then now add the next thing. So that could be it too, where it's like, I'm going to focus on Twitter and start diving in and just tweeting all the time. And that's where I'm going to do my main form of communication for a while with the podcast and with this, Greg bottom tier Greg persona that I have right now, and which is just us, but and just go out there and just mingle that way, and then we can go from there. Or it's more of like we use the bottom tier Twitter as just here's our episodes, and then we have a personal Twitter so we can make those more natural connections too, of like, I'm bottom tier Matt, I'm bottom tier Greg. We have our separate profile. Like there's a couple things we can do that too. So it could just be hyper focusing on one section, getting good at it, and then moving on to the next, get one done at a time, because we have done a lot where it's like, we have YouTube, we have Twitter, we have this. And like, I think we got YouTube pretty down pat right now. We're just putting out videos and we comment on the people that comment with us, and we got to get better at certain edits, but we're eventually going to get there because it gets better every day.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Steps.
Greg did is like, and that just means like, you're the editor, Matt. I know. I get it. I gotta get better.
We really need to get better at this.
Yeah, but I mean, like with our content, all that type of stuff. So we got that. So now it's just the next one. So like, yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that? Was that bad advice? Was that ill advice?
No, I think that ill advice. I think that's pretty solid advice, because like really you're right when you say that, we got into the game and then immediately started making content. And then when we started making content, we created like 400 billion accounts everywhere.
Yeah.
Across all the platforms that require a lot of work now in order to keep that up.
Yeah.
And we never really sat down and figured out, like, are we going to promote this on social media? Like, are we really going to work this? Like what's the plan?
We would like to, but like, it's like, I don't have time.
But we have partners and jobs and, the whole nine. So
but if we sit down maybe like on a Sunday, or one of us, or we just to have a communication that way too, go like, hey, we are making the memes this week for the Instagram. Sweet. Let's do it right now. Here's the 7 memes for Instagram. Cool. And then we post them or like schedule it or whatever. You can do that too. So there's that. And then I think like for Twitter, it is just conversation. And so just like, I struggle saying things I've always had this struggle and fear, the same as yours, where it's like, I'm just saying dumb things to try to like get in the like,
right. Exactly.
What's my intention?
I wonder if they're going to notice that I'm desperate for them to like me.
Yeah. And like, honestly, like I'm not good at social media. I don't care enough anymore. Like I have people follow my personal account. I'm like, Dead by Daylight at school. Like, oh, this thing at work happened. And it's like, I am literally just talking to the universe, and I don't care who likes it anymore. I'm just like, yeah, like if you're going to interact with it,
cool.
Awesome.
But I don't.
But I'm not a pro at making like that type of like content to be funny, anything like that. I'm naturally not good at it, but I also like try to talk to other people like, oh, this seems really neat. And like no response, even on Reddit and stuff like, oh, that seems really cool. Like, not a big response. And it's just might be because like, I don't know, maybe part of it is like, yeah, the only thing I can do is say like, yeah, that's right. Maybe it has to be more open-ended, or maybe more funny, or I just don't know what the personality trait is to get that engagement back on those type of things.
Right. Exactly. And like, of course, we're not going to figure it out sitting here in chairs, just talking to each other about it. There are a whole like $1 million like companies whose entire thing is like, we'll help you engage with social media so that people will care about you,
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's really like an answer, but I mean,
and I've gone to those classes that like we were both in real estate. We were both in a business where they talk about it, and it's literally just posting every day. Right.
Yeah. Which, okay.
Like, and then commenting again at 12 o'clock, comment again at 5 o'clock, and then being like, cool, they saw me the entire day. And then with Instagram, it's like, you got to make sure you're doing stories. Some people say 10 stories a day. I don't have that much content. That's
excessive. I don't.
But we can make a reel. I could probably do an edit where I would just edit it to be a reel instead and then post it on there. But like, that's extra amount of work that I just like.
Right, exactly. And the half an hour it takes you to find the right section and to portion it off and to make sure it works for the what's the word? the ratios and the everything. Like that's time that you could be doing almost anything else. You could be sleeping. You could go get gas. You could make yourself a delicious, healthy meal. Like
the moral of the story for the layman listener is enjoy.
if you skipped the entire conversation, you just got here, TLDR.
Yeah. The moral of the story is if you are really into a hobby, content creation can cause some form of burnout, right? Like, right? Because you talked about that in your lesson learned is like we are creating so much and we involved ourselves in this space that it can hyper speed into like being a little like burned out and doing stuff like that. And that's just a normal thing of content creators. So respect those people who don't need to respect us, but respect those people who make content because it is a hard thing to go do out there and do. And we just got to figure out like our space. And honestly, like, coming back to that Chris Hardwick example of the Nerdist is we will eventually get there, and it just kind of depends on the amount of time we participate in the community. And so if we start focusing on Twitter more for the next month, we will see an increase and we will see stuff like that. And I think the problem is like we just have this like societal mindset where we're like, I want things now. And
right,
we're like,
right, exactly. You can't have it now.
Give me the spoiler card. And you're just like, it's just like, no, it doesn't work that way.
But Daddy, I want a golden goose.
We have to just be there for a while and then things will start opening up. And so I think like if you want to have those conversations, like have those conversations on Twitter and just start every single day. Like I'm going to go on there for 20 minutes and just like, as bottom tier and go do that and you will start seeing results. I guarantee it. I also help, but I also am not the best at it because I don't like I am, like I said, like harbinger of Arizona is kind of where I'm at right now, where I'm like, I kind of just like, I'm meeting with the people here. We're making this content together and we're going forward.
And I love that.
And that's
it's genuinely phenomenal, and I love showcasing other people. I just want people to like me, man.
Great.
I'm just everyone sad likes you. And lonely. Everyone and that's all it is.
Yeah. Everyone likes you.
That's not true.
You should start a Twitter account.
Plenty of people
called Sad and Lonely Greg.
Called Sad and Lonely Greg, and it's just pictures of me just being sad and lonely.
Just kidding. That was
in various locations.
But I don't know. That was a good like.
It's a weird tangent.
It's a common tangent. And I think that's what's interesting is that this is a very common feeling that every content creator has. It's not just flesh and blood. It's not anything. It's for any topic. You will have these same feelings. And it's just, you just have to continue pushing through. And the people who are at the top, there is some like 1% exceptions where they didn't have to go through the feeling. But most of the time, like anyone you enjoy watching their content on anywhere in the world,
just a part of the process,
went through the same thing. Right. Or are currently going through the same thing and don't even know. Right. And
True.
so just keep going for it. It's the curse of the content creator. It's the curse of the Twitch streamer, right? Everyone has to start with a stream with one viewer or two or zero, right? For a time. And, there's nothing like worse than like, I remember when I started Twitch streaming, when I first started, it was like, I'm going to make this my career. And I got out of it I was like, I'm going to be focused on Pokemon and all this stuff and whatever. I remember being there and I was like, I'm into Pokemon right now. I'll just like open cards on stream, see what goes on. And I'll like hold it to the camera and do all that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with the word that was used. But I remember I was there by myself and someone decided to not be nice or just be weird. And like, I was like 25. Like I'm a grown man. Like I've had my life and dating someone and all that stuff. And it's just like, they just decided to come in like, like it's not bad, but it's like, you're a virgin, you're blah, 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 you're and like kind of name called and then just left. It was like, I had 1 view. I was like, oh, hey, how's it going, man? No. And then left. Don't know why.
Okay. Well, some men just want to watch the world burn, man.
It was one video. It was one view, right? So like that can affect you as a person where you're like, I'm a streamer and I have 1%. He's just being a jerk. Cool. And that made me go like, maybe I don't really want to do this because I'm kind of more like, I don't want to be name called. Like I don't want to do all that and have to go through that. But that's part of it.
You don't want to put your face out there I mean, you're entirely right. That is part of it. You got to put yourself out there. And in so doing, you open yourself up to potential, huge positives, but you also court some of the negatives.
And like I said, like those things that he said isn't like the most like hurtful things in the world, but it was still like I could feel the intent. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're like, cool. Like I get what you're saying towards me right now, and whatever. And I'm so glad you decided to take part of your day to just like kind of shit on someone, right?
Yeah.
And
classy.
It's super cool, but it's just the experience of going through content creation, and I think it's just got to figure out like your internal of like, why am I doing this? Is it for the connection? Then we got to work towards having that connection with other content creators. Is it just to make cool content? Then that's where it doesn't really matter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we're just making cool content. Yeah. So that's a weird tangent. And I felt like that was really deep and personal. And I'm really grateful that you're willing to share things like that. Cause I think that harbored like, oh man, I wish I had a better vocabulary. Cause I'm like, you're over here like, expeditious or whatever, but I don't know if that's a big word, but like, harbinging. Don't know. You get my point.
I love you, buddy.
Yeah. Like my vocabulary is awful. Yeah.
I get what you're talking about, though.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you being here for me to open up and have these conversations and not just say, shut up and go away, Greg. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you, Matt.
Appreciate you.
And we appreciate all you fine, beautiful listeners out there.
I know it's a different podcast than usual, but hey, I kind of like the openness of that. I don't really think I've seen content creators have a deep... Maybe they do all the time, but...
And we just don't pay attention. Yeah, but look, like ultimately, when you get right down to it, this podcast, this entire thing that we do is about buddies being nerds.
Yeah. And like making content.
Yeah. And that's part of it.
Yeah.
You don't get to be a buddy with somebody without occasionally bearing your soul.
Exactly.
Not everyone does it online. But you know what?
That's a new card, you know?
Cool like that.
Bare your soul.
Right, exactly. Sounds like a Runeblade card.
It's a Soul Lantern. Just kidding.
Soul Lantern. That's pretty awesome, actually.
You know, that's for the light heroes, you know.
Right.
If you have a yellow card, you get to put a card in your soul, you know?
Exactly.
Soul Lantern. But guys, this is the Bottom Tier Podcast. As always, I'm Matt.
And I'm Greg. And guys, thank you so much for being here while we got all personal and weepy. We really appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll see you next time.
Toodles.
Bottoms up.